Jai Sriman Narayan. Jai Sriman Narayan. Jai Sriman Narayan. I pay my obeisances to my spiritual master, Srimad Jagat Guru Sudarshan Acharya Ji Maharaj. I pay my obeisances to Lord Sri Ramanuj. I pay my obeisances to Mother Lakshmi, and I pay my obeisances to Lord Sriman Narayan. I welcome all of you to the Thursday Satsang at the Sri Narayan Dham. Those of you that are physically present in Durban, South Africa. I welcome those that are watching this discourse locally, nationally, and internationally. And I welcome those that's going to be watching this discourse when it is posted in the various groups from around the world and YouTube subsequently. Our topic for discussion: material science or modern science is catching up with spiritual science, and the Lord for the world is Lord Narayan's classroom. And I explained last week that the ingredients for this material universe is created for suffering. Ingredients in this material universe is created for suffering. There are 4 types of suffering. 1, suffering imposed by the cosmic administrators. Suffering imposed by the cosmic administrators. And in Durban today, and I think a few other parts of South Africa, people are suffering because of rain. Rain has turned into flooding, and it has now become a disaster. So whether you're a multi-billionaire or an average man, this flood has affected both. Then there is another kind of suffering imposed through your own body, which is biological suffering, where you are ill or you have illnesses or diseases. Then you have psychological suffering, where your entire being is in a misery. And then you have suffering from material nature itself. Whether you're a billionaire or an ordinary person, the mosquito doesn't care. It can irritate you the entire night. It has a way of buzzing in your ear, and it doesn't care whose ear it chooses. Rishi, I don't think you had mosquito problems for a long, long time, because you was a mosquito repellent. As soon as they hovered over you, they died. Okay? Bhabhi, you must not be afraid to sing the Hanuman Chalisa, for Lord Hanuman himself carried you and brought you to this satsang. You must give gratitude to him. I do not know a lot of Hindi, and I also never sang in my life, but I penned that song that I sang for my Guruji. I wrote the song and I formulated the tune. It's for my love for my Guruji that gave me the inspiration to write the bhajan, Mere Guruji. Okay? And similarly, everyone should be singing some bhajan for Guru. If you don't like your Guru Kavir, you can sing to Lord Narayan or Lord Sri Ramanuj. Okay? But everyone should be singing. If the lead singer is singing, then you all should be singing behind and chorusing the lead singer. Okay? Come alive. Come alive, Rishi. You did a lot of singing in your other spiritual world. This is the spiritual world you really singing. Alright? So we want you to sing. Your daughter is laughing in the back. Alright? She must have heard a great many albums of yours. Alright? Or MP3s, I don't know. Alright? Rishified 1, Rishified 2, Rishified Volume 5. I don't know how far you went, Rishibai. But I want everyone to sing and clap. Because as you singing and clapping, you changing your consciousness and you giving it more positivity. From whatever consciousness you enter by singing and by clapping, you are increasing your consciousness in a positive direction. It is for that reason we have bhajan. Or I can just go on to discourses. The reason we have bhajan is so that you can shake off your mind, subdue your mind, so that when the Guru speaks and gives discourses, your mind is arrested or neutralized. That is why we have bhajans. Okay? So bhajan sanctify the mind so that you can hear the discourses of the speaker. So I said there are 4 types of sufferings, and one of them I said is psychological. What is psychological suffering? Amita Singh?
Depression.
Sorry?
Depression.
Deeper than that, which part of the body it affects?
Mind.
The mind. So psychological suffering is from the mind, and this suffering, as I explained in the previous discourse, is inherited from a past life. It's inherited from the past life and experienced in this life, and one of the categories of psychological suffering is addiction. Addiction to drugs, alcohol and sex, gambling. Addiction to drugs, alcohol, sex and gambling. These are psychological impairments. These are psychological impairments inherited from your past life. So you can see by design this universe and its ingredients is only for suffering. Only for suffering, and there is an absolute science. There is an absolute science and a scientific journal, the essence of which I stated in my last discourse was the Bhagavad Gita, where you can understand your suffering, where you can understand your suffering and plot a GPS so that you can navigate out of the suffering universe with the least amount of accidents. This information is already provided. So Hemita, when you transcribe this discourse tonight or tomorrow, you'd have seen Vishwadhar writing right on the top, Synopsis. And in this synopsis, you're going to write, my son is a drug addict. Your heading going to be, my son is a drug addict. And I'm going to summarize as follows. There is no one that's born or takes their birth in this universe without the previous life karma. Birth in this universe is impelled by your previous life karma. Not even the Guru's son can take birth in this universe without being impelled by his or her previous life karma. All of you understand? Because science is absolute. Science is absolute. The ingredients for this universe is suffering. Suffering comes from your activities of a previous lifetime, and everyone that takes their birth, every living entity that takes their birth in this lifetime, takes their birth architected by themselves in the previous life. And this science won't be exact if the Guru's children are born perfect. All of you understand? Then this science cannot be absolute. So there's no saints. You have to make yourself saintly. You have to make yourself saintly by living in the righteousness as prescribed in the scientific journal called the Bhagavad Gita. Because a mosquito even rings in a guru's ear, Rishi. Mosquito rings in a guru's ear. A fly sits on the guru's food. A snake enters the guru's kutir. Even the guru's life is miserable. Even the guru's life is miserable. Coming back to the topic, my son is a drug addict. So for a few years, there was a lot of talk by those that have been in the satsang and who left for whatever reasons they left. But people come in a different mode, and when they leave in a different mode. When they came in, my son was a drug addict. When they left, my son was still a drug addict. They stayed for many years in the satsang whilst my son was a drug addict. They mixed with him. And for those of you, Ramita, you must post a picture of Shravan, still picture of Shravan singing. For those of you that's listening to this discourse, who don't know my son, a picture of him will be posted singing. So in between his own suffering, he endeavored to come in the front and sing for Guruji, Lord Narayan and Lord Sri Raman. Whilst he was battling with this great illness, which is his own creation in a previous lifetime, he still managed to come and sing in the front. And there were those throughout their relationship with me, because my son has been a drug addict before I became a guru. So throughout their relationship with me, they knew he was a drug addict. They came in the front and they gave testimonials on how they have been assisted in this organization. But when they left, they went around the community stating, if this guru is so great, why can't he cure his son? Same people who gave their own testimonies, but when they left, this was their attack on the institution. If this guru is so great, if so many people are getting cured, then why can't he cure his own son, who is a drug addict in this very same community? So we let this play out. We let this situation play out because supreme science is absolute. Supreme science is absolute, and the guru does not interfere in the karma of his own family. The guru does not interfere in the karma of his own family. The karma of the guru's own family must play out in accordance with the grace of his guru and Lord Sriman Narayan. So whenever my own family is involved, and you all would have noticed Mataji going to hospital on numerous occasions, and people 100 times worse in Mataji's condition, one blessing and they fixed up in this satsang itself. But Mataji has to go to hospitals and work out her own karmas under the grace of Guruji or Lord Narayan. And that is what you call supreme science, because the Guru does not use his own grace on his own friend. And at this point, Shravan has given both myself and Mataji and some of the devotees a very, very difficult time in the years leading up to today's discourse. And that is part of the illness of a drug addict. And I also want to state that my best friend, who assisted me in founding this institution, who helped me clean up my addictions, also fell prey to drugs. My best friend, my school friend, drugs killed him. He committed suicide. And he assisted me in founding this Acharya Sham Ramanuk Foundation. In fact, he was the co-founder of this institution. He came from a very spiritual family. His father dedicated 44 years of his life to an ashram. His father spent 8 hours a day working. 8 hours a day working in the ashram, and 8 hours a day resting and sleeping in 24 hours for 44 years. And his son committed suicide in his lifetime, whilst he was alive and in his 80s, late 80s. A great man, one of my mentors, he lost his son through cocaine. He hanged himself. He was totally opposite my son, Shaul, my friend who passed on. He was humble, he was kind, he was a humanitarian. He had no violence, no arrogance. Anytime you found him helping people and assisting people. But this drug was so great that it enticed him to lose his life. In the interim and subsequently, 3 of Shawan's best friends all died committing suicide, and 1 died whilst having lunch with his girlfriend. All under drugs. Drugs is not in our slums. It's right here. For those of you that listening to this discourse, Reservoir Hills is a place of the wealthy, middle class to wealth, upper class in the economy. These are children of doctors, lawyers, judges, and drug is as rife in Reservoir Hills as in any part of our country. Any turn and every turn you take in Reservoir Hills, there's a drug dealer that's living. And the reason I'm sending this message out is because we in the Indian community, we don't want even our own brothers and sisters to know of the problems that we have in our family. We want to hide this drug addiction. We want to hide this alcohol addiction. We want to sweep it under the carpet. And by hiding and sweeping these addictions, we are enabling the death of our family, friends, and children. We need to expose this illness. I explained, drug addiction is a psychological illness. It's an illness like cancer, like diabetes. It is like any other illness. Amita, do not disturb me. It is like any other illness. And we have to discuss this illness. This illness brought Shravan almost to his death on Saturday. This illness brought Shravan almost to his death on Saturday. Sita, in what condition you saw Shravan? You can turn your camera around.
It wasn't a good sight.
What did you see?
He had some blood on his head. He wasn't conscious.
He was assaulted so badly. His whole face was pouring with blood. And he was walking into cars because he no longer wanted to live. Because this is what psychological illness is. Doctor, psychological illness depresses you. Depresses you. What does it depress? Your mental stability. And when your mental stability is depressed, there is an imbalance in your functioning. And when there is an imbalance in your functioning, then there is no need for you, or no desire to continue living. You can see I've been filmed by a handsome, I haven't seen waistcoat in years. Get up, Amita, let the world see his waistcoat. Dana, you remember these waistcoat days?
Yes, sir.
Then get up, we'll let everyone see your waistcoat. Turn around, let people see your waistcoat. You see this handsome man wearing his waistcoat? Can you see where he's sitting? Can you see what work he is doing? All of you, can you see? No different from Shravan. No different from Shravan. Get up in the back, Mr. Leon. Look here. Go near, catch a good look at his face. Niladri, he's the person I told Vasan not to fight with. Because Vasan held the title for many years in this satsang. Now they have to fight for the title. Come. His 15 seconds of fame is gone. Come back to the front. Shravan has been speaking to both Mr. Waistcoat, whose name is Charles, and Leon in the back for quite a few months now, Charles, Leon. And although he was suffering, and although his father couldn't cure him, he asked both Charles and Leon, please come to my dad. You don't have to go to a rehab. My dad will clean. And Leon in the back, he was supporting Ilovo and Ulitz. Rishi enjoying this. Ilovo and Ulitz. Okay? And our friend in Plan 12, he was supporting the Kwan. He was supporting Kwan. Ilovo and Ulitz is heroin commonly known as sugars. And Brox is a drug commonly known as Charles?
Cocaine.
Cocaine. Cocaine. And Sherwin is also addicted to a drug called cocaine. Cocaine is a drug that can be taken at any time, but there is no withdrawal symptoms for that drug. So it means if you have cocaine tonight, you don't have to get up tomorrow morning and run for another cocaine. But if you are addicted to sugars, then you have to get up the next morning and run for sugars. And I did an analysis interview with our Ulitz and Ilovo man in the back there, and he said the minimum amount of money you need is 54 rands in the morning to start your day with sugars, and to sustain your entire day you need 400 rand a day. 400 rand a day. And you need it every day. Okay? So last week, Monday, Sherwin's behavior was gone to such a level that I once again asked him to leave. From which door the Easters are coming? You think there? Yeah, just identify the door and close it. That I asked Sherwin to leave the ashram premises. In fact, Sherwin's behavior had become so intolerable that we have an interdict from court which was granted to us for a period of 30 years. And I'm stating this so that we need to come out for those that's going to be listening or reading this discourse, and we need to fix this problem. Because as long as we sit, then our very own becomes our enemy. And coincidentally, whilst he was packing his clothes, lo and behold, his two friends walked down the driveway. And they said they want to speak to Sherwin's dad. And both said, Dad, we are ready to give up our drug habits and we submit to you. We want you to fix us up. And without any hesitation, I accepted them at this ashram. And I told Mr. Ilovo in the back that he'll be cured in 3 days. Medically, you can turn your camera back and you can ask him, I'll ask him some questions and he'll answer. You can sit, Leon. You're a boss. Behind you is a bigger boss. Alright? Leon, for how long are you addicted to sugars?
10 years.
How many times you went to rehab?
3.
Over what period? Take your finger out of
28 days.
all the time, 28 days.
Yeah.
How long it took you to recover?
21 days.
And how long you recovered here at the Sri Narayan Dham?
10 days, maybe 3 days.
Today is your 10th.
Yeah.
Okay? So, scientifically, it is impossible to understand how Leon, addicted to sugars, in 3 days was cured of his addiction. You can come back anytime. I don't know how you're going to do this because Charles is also filming. Okay, but you can turn your camera towards him. Charles, yes, okay. Whichever way you want to turn your camera. You can film him because we're interviewing you now. Okay, how long are you involved in your addiction?
12 years.
12 years. How are you feeling today?
I feel like brand new.
How many days you with me?
10 days, no?
10 days. Okay. Which religious group you belong to, Charles?
Christianity.
And you, Leon?
Christianity.
Just film him again. Which religious grouping you belong to?
Christianity.
Christianity. Okay. And the beauty of this discourse is that Shaun was admitted yesterday in a rehab that is Christian based. Shaun was admitted in a rehab yesterday that is Christian based. Okay? And I want you to see all and understand all the dynamics that I am presenting today. Because those that are going to be viewing this discourse or listening to this discourse, they want a solution to the problem if they have a husband that's a drug addict, or a son that is a drug addict, or a daughter that's a drug addict, or a wife that's a drug addict. That's how rife drug addiction is in our society. And I'm not even going to Chatsworth. I am sticking around where the Sri Narayan Dham is centered, and this is in Reservoir Hills. 2 weeks ago, we lost a young girl, I think 20 or 21 years old. She was addicted to heroin, and she was knocked and killed just down the road. Sorry?
I was right there.
Okay, Leon says he was right there. Okay, so this is how serious this addiction is. Her father is a lucrative businessman in this area. By speaking and giving this discourse tonight, we are informing those that need assistance. It is not the end of the world. This illness can be cured. And we're balancing it because 2 Christian gentlemen got cured in an ashram, and my son is getting cured in a church. Isn't it a balance? And this is the teachings of Lord Sri Ramanuj, the greatest social reformer of this Kali Yuga. He stated equality for all. Not only as a statement, but he made it a reality. He made it a reality. Lord Sri Ramanuj endorsed equality for all. And I want to explain that by me allowing Sherwin to live in this ashram with his prevailing addiction, allowed me to accept his 2 friends and admit them in the same ashram and in the same manner that I allowed Sherwin to live in this ashram. Do you understand? And that balances off any queries on how the Guru allowed his son, who was a drug addict, to live in the ashram. Doesn't it not? Because by me allowing Sherwin to live in this ashram as an addict, it assisted in curing 2 of his friends of the same illness. And we don't know how many more people will be cured. And that is equality for all. Equality for all. In September last year, when I was in Sri Rangam, when I went on a pilgrimage to understand our Adi Guru better, whilst I was there, Sherwin gave a talk. And in his talk he stated that if my father did not neglect me in favor of my devotees, I may have not been so deep where I am. You all remember the talk that Sherwin gave when I was in India? And it was that talk that impelled me to forget my guruhood when it came to Sherwin and just be an ordinary father. And I reacted as an ordinary father to Sherwin, and we assisted him up until the time he was ready for rehab. And the irony and the tragedy is that when Sherwin was ready, this country does not have an institution in readiness for a drug addict. Does it, Leon? When a drug addict is ready for help, you heard? He said you need help same time. this country does not have the facilities to assist you the same time. And because this country does not have the facilities to assist you the same time, we found Sherwin about to commit suicide. He packed his bags up 3 times. He was ready for the past 3 weeks. We did a family outing together. I went to the beach with him because he knew the next day he's going somewhere for 6 months. It just didn't happen. Either you're not the right religion or you do not have the amount of money that the rehabs want. And in this entire incident, when Sherwin was ready, he could have died. He could have died. Last week, Saturday, had it not been for Guruji, Sherwin would not have been alive. Sherwin would not have been alive. Guruji brought him back home. So today is Sherwin's second day at the rehab. And we forgot to buy his biscuits and chocolates. So somehow he managed to sneak a phone call to me. And he said, "Dad, I need my cigarettes, I need my chocolates, I need my biscuits, and how is Celine? How is his girlfriend? He is not worried how his father is. He is not worried how his mother is. He is not worried how his brother is." And I told him the ashram was almost flooded. He is not worried how the ashram is. Biscuits, chocolates, and girlfriend. Okay? So we will visit him. We will provide what he needs besides his girlfriend tomorrow. Tomorrow. Okay? And I think we're going to run a few more. I'll ask Hemita to do some research on this substance abuse, drug abuse. I myself will drive to the Sydenham police and get some stats. And I think we need to get active. Because Islam and those that follow Islam, they have a rehab. Those that follow Christianity, they have a rehab. There is no rehab for those that follow Sanatana Dharma. There are no rehabs for those that follow Sanatana Dharma. And if, although they say it's easy to join these rehabs because it is funded by their own religion, I found it very difficult to get a place for sure. So I went to one rehab just up the road on Saturday, and I told them, please, this is an emergency. For 10 years, my son was in denial. For the past 2 weeks, he is searching for a rehab. He wants assistance. They said, sorry, there's no one that can assist you. We are busy having a bride. Can you see I'm trying to park the cars for a bride? I said, Bhai, my son might commit suicide tonight. When this was? On Saturday. Is there a way we can restrain him so that he can go for rehabilitation? They said, meet my director on Monday. So Monday morning 8 o'clock, I cancelled my morning Aarti and I asked Dana to continue the Aarti. I went to this rehab and I met the director and I told the director, please, I was here Saturday, I informed your members that my son was suicidal. In fact, he was beaten very, very badly. He still wants assistance, he wants to be rehabilitated. How can you help? He said, well, you must come through programs, bring him through meetings. About 8 or 10 meetings, and then they will do an intervention. Now you know why that poor girl died on the street. Now you know why my best friend died. Because when they were ready for help, there's so much of red tape, and it depends on which religion you belong, that there is no immediate help. Leon, if I did not embrace you and Charles last week Monday, immediately, what would have been your position today?
Even Charles.
Charles, you?
Same.
If I did not embrace you immediately on Monday, what you would have been doing, Charles?
I would be getting high, watching time fly.
Okay, so we're looking at it lightly, but it is very, very important that when an addict comes to a point in his mind, because this is a mental illness, when they say, I am now ready, then the institution should be ready for them, don't you think? Because it took Sherwin 10 years to say he's ready. And he went in Makutir and he's telling his mother, Ma, why can't Daddy put me somewhere and lock me up? I can't make it. I'm going insane. This addiction is killing me. I need to be locked away for a long time. And I failed him. I failed him because the society has failed us. And the society has failed us in not providing an institution that can assist you immediately. So we are going to get involved very, very deeply. Earlier this year I committed myself in politics, and I'm going to use that leverage to make sure that we get an institution like how Charles and Leon, they walked in, they said we are ready, and within 2 seconds they were admitted. This type of institution must exist for every drug addict whenever he or she is ready. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Hemita, for next week or next satsang, you must research what influence the drug has on the mind of a human being. We want to understand the mental capacity of a human being induced by drugs, and we want to understand the mental faculties of those people that determine when the person induced by drug is ready for admission. You understand? We want to bring these two together. We want to see how a person comes to a decision that when a drug addict states, I am ready now to fix myself up, how they come to a decision in a prolonged program. We want to understand these dynamics. Okay? Are there any questions? Sit up. Sita takes herbal drugs, alright? So she won't find herself in need of rehabilitation. Jai Shri Narayan.